Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my third rebuttal. This one will be for the Washington Post. The issue is not mental health, the issue is guns, by Eugene Robinson. Now this article is in response to a school shooting that happened in Florida recently. I'm sure you all heard about it. Some little punk went and shot 17 kids, injured a whole bunch of others at a school. It's really horrifying, and of course following it you will have all these people bringing politics into it. And many people are saying that we shouldn't bring politics into this. We shouldn't be arguing. We should be grieving the loss and giving prayers to the families. And I agree with that to an extent. Yes, the first day or two should be as a time to go over what happened, give grievances, give your prayers and such. But after, the second day, third day, whatever, you need to start talking about what you can do to prevent this. When things like this happen, you really need to bring up the topic and talk about it. I think what we are all looking for is an answer to find out how to prevent things like this from happening ever again. And really, the short answer is there probably is no other way, but it's still worth the shot for looking for it. And so this is one of the classic takes you'll get on it. The issue is with the guns. You need more gun control. And I personally don't think that gun control is necessarily the answer to preventing school shootings like this from happening. But I'll get onto that in a second. First, I want to provide some background into the shooting. So yes, as you all know, some little bitch went and shot up a school with an AR-15 and a whole bunch of ammo at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High. He was 19 at the time, it was Valentine's Day, and he told his parents he was going to skip class. And then later, he goes to the school, fire alarm goes off, and he starts shooting a bunch of people towards the end of the day. He used to go to the school, but he got expelled, and so he knew the layout pretty well. And I'm sure that's why he did get as many people as he did, unfortunately. Now, my attention lies not in the event itself, but everything that happened before the event. Everything that could have been done to prevent this from happening. And my sense is that the only way this could have been prevented is if people actually took action. There's nothing that we as a nation could have done. Only the people in that kid's life could have prevented this from happening. And they should have. They had reason to. They had their opportunity. They just lacked their motive. They didn't want to give this kid, probably autistic or something, they didn't want to give him a criminal record, I assume. And they had good intentions. He had a troubled life. He lost his father, and then before the shooting, he lost his mother. I'm sure that played a big role in it. But all throughout his life, he had bad behavior constantly. And there becomes a point where you need to start reporting this and giving him a criminal record for actions he's taken, especially once he gets old enough. And like I said, I know they have good intentions, but you really do need to report things like this sometimes. Not the school shooting, but some of the things he did that I'll get into. So some background on this kid, or rather an adult, because he's 19 now. He threatened students multiple times on campuses with knives and bullets in his backpack. That alone should have been enough to give him at least some sort of criminal record. They only punished him a little bit. They suspended him, and then they said you're not allowed to bring a backpack on campus anymore because he brought so many weapons in constantly to the school. That should have been, red signs, ding, 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 ding. There's something wrong here, right? All they did was say, okay, no backpack. And then finally they expelled him from the school. They expelled him from the school for all his gun threats and bullets and knives in his backpack and constantly harassing students. And he was 18. He should have been tried as an adult. He should have been punished and thrown in jail for that. So he got kicked out of his public school, his high school, and then he went to private school and he got kicked out of a couple private schools for the same bad behavior. He was on the FBI's radar after he's been reported making strange comments on YouTube videos. One of them was he said he was going to be a professional school shooter, and the channel who made that video that the guy commented on reported it to the FBI, and I'm glad he did. But all the FBI did was come take a copy of the screenshot of the comment and then just left. They didn't do anything else beyond that. And I can understand to an extent, you got free speech and stuff, but the kid did this multiple times. And you always see kids getting arrested for making like Snapchat posts saying, oh, don't go to school the next day with a gun in the photo, or ready for round 2 of Florida. You've seen kids like these get arrested for Snapchat posts like that. And this guy did that multiple times. And here's another one. 9 months ago, he made a comment on a YouTube video of the 1996 Texas University clock tower sniper. He said, I am going to do what he did. It's not a I want to do what he did, it's I'm going to. It's a promise. And after so many comments, something should have been done rather than just take a screenshot of the comments and put it in the filing cabinet. YouTube did not even remove his channel until the day the shooting happened. There was absolutely nothing. So he was on the FBI's radar. He was on the local law enforcement's radar too. The police were called on him many times. Even his own parents called the police on him. And when I say the police were called to his home many times, I mean they were called to his house 39 times, is the latest report that I've heard. 39 times the police were called to his house. Yet not one criminal record on his background. Not one. He threw eggs at cars, stole mail and other things from neighbors' garages. He bit children. That should be an alarm itself. He sent his dog to attack neighbors' pigs. And then, if all of that wasn't enough, he used guns and then went around the neighborhood shooting people's chickens. You can't just go around shooting people's chickens in the neighborhood. You can't. There's multiple charges right there that could have been filed against him. But there wasn't. 39 times this could have been prevented. All it takes is one charge, and he would not have been able to get the guns. All it took, one time of the 39 times, that this could have been prevented. The shooting could have been prevented over and over again, and that's why I believe that more gun laws are not the answer. Maybe a good first step is charging adults for threatening kids with knives and bullets on school campuses. That would be a good first step, don't you think? That you shouldn't be able to threaten people with knives and bullets on school grounds. He should have been arrested and charged as an adult. The idea that another layer of legality to acquire a gun would solve this issue is pretty delusional, in my opinion. I think it's being ignorant to the facts of the situation. And so I get back to this piece. The issue is not mental health, the issue is guns. And right off the bat here, the author is saying that mental health was not an issue. I beg to differ. You have someone running around biting children and shooting chickens. Not even his own chickens, other people's chickens. He threatens students with knives and bullets on school grounds. This guy was insane. He was. And he should not have been able to get the guns. I can agree that much that he should not have been able to get those guns. He really shouldn't have. But he passed the background check, all because he wasn't charged with anything he did. And that's why I put part of the blame on the school shooting on the authorities who handled the situations. And I understand that they had good intentions, but after 39 times, and after the things he did, he really should have been arrested and charged with at least something. It doesn't even have to be something big. You could have just charged him with stealing mail. That was all that was needed. But nothing happened. So that's my stance on it. We're going to get into the article now. Don't tell me the issue is mental health. Save the nonsense about good guys with weapons somehow being the answer. Well, I'm going to tell you anyways that the issue was mental health. As I just said, this guy was insane. And yes, I do think that if police were on those school grounds, that could have saved more lives. I do believe a good step to take after these shootings is to get more security on these school grounds. Many campuses don't even have police officers on them. I think all schools should have police officers on them. I don't know how this is even partly controversial. School grounds are gun-free zones and yet have almost no security. It's like a paradise for a shooting. So yes, I do think that some good guys with weapons, or in other words police, would be a good answer for some of these shootings. At least to reduce the amount of damage that they can do. Because we all know that damage can be inflicted. But the real answer we're all looking for here is how to prevent so much damage from being inflicted. And police on school campuses would definitely help. The truth is this. There would have been no tragic shooting Wednesday in Parkland, Florida, if a troubled young man had not gotten his hands on a military-style assault rifle and as much ammunition as he wanted. Now, first off, the AR-15 is not a military-style assault rifle. It's not even an assault rifle, let alone military style. If you use the AR-15 in the military, people would laugh at you, okay? And I do agree with him. There probably would not have been as bad of a tragic shooting if he had not gotten an AR-15. He should not have gotten any guns. You saw his background. Police visited his house 39 times. There's no way he should have been able to get a gun. But yet he still did. And again, it's not the laws. It was the police that were the problem there. Many people knew that Nicholas Cruz was troubled, violent, and liable to explode. Yes, everybody knew. But yet the adults in this situation that could have prevented it chose to ignore it. And that's the problem here. Yet nothing kept him from acquiring the gun he allegedly used to kill 17 students and faculty members at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. and yet another senseless slaughter of the kind that still shocks but no longer surprises. And I totally agree with him on this. However, more laws still wouldn't have stopped him. It simply wouldn't have. He had no background on him. We have laws in place to prevent people like this from getting guns. The only problem is that the laws weren't enforced. So no, more laws probably wouldn't help. You need to enforce those laws. President Trump addressed the nation saying we must answer hate with love and vowing to tackle the difficult issue of mental health. But he made no mention of gun control, meaning he might as well have said nothing at all. No, now that right there is a bit much. I think he should have made no mention of gun control, which he did. You don't respond to a school shooting by saying, we need more gun control, especially if you're the president. I think we can all agree on that you shouldn't come out right after a school shooting on live television and be like, okay, we need more gun control. No, you say, I'm sorry for your losses. We need to answer hate with love, like he said. These are difficult times and my prayers are with you, etc., etc. And that's what he did, and I'm glad. That's what you should do. You should not bring politics into this, as the author is suggesting here. And so what he's saying here is meaning he might as well have said nothing at all? No, really? He might as well have not said, I'm sorry for your loss, if he didn't bring up politics? How does that make any sense? You see, most people are like, no, you shouldn't bring politics in after a school shooting. And this guy's over here like, no, you need to bring in politics after a school shooting. This guy is out of touch with what people want. According to the news reports in the Post and other outlets, Cruz, 19, had been repeatedly suspended and then expelled from the high school for disciplinary problems. This is what I was telling you guys earlier. He had a wide range of problems with him. He had sought and received treatment at a mental health clinic but stopped attending. He showed signs of depression. His posts on social media were so unsettling that they scared acquaintances away. His father died several years ago, and his mother, with whom he was close, passed away around Thanksgiving. Now, I personally believe that his mother dying, along with his father several years back, did play a big part in the shooting. He was probably extremely depressed. And when you take a guy who has obvious anger problems and insanity problems, and then you give him the depression, things are going to go wrong. It's just a bomb waiting to explode, really. Cruz may have been a member of a white nationalist group. Now, those are rumors that have been tossed around. There's no really confirmation for that. Some people are speculating it's a 4chan prank. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. The only evidence we have that he was a part of the white nationalist group was some guy saying that he was. That's it. Now, would it have surprised me if he was a part of that group? No, it wouldn't have surprised me at all. But again, like the author had pointed out, he may have been. It's still rumored. And maybe by the time this video gets out, it'll be confirmed, but I don't know. And he had a fetish for guns. That one I will agree with. He had posts all over his Instagram of him with guns, mainly BB guns, but a lot of guns. Or like his classmates, you would hear quotes from them saying he always talked about guns and hunting. So yeah, he did have a fetish for guns. To say there were warning signs about Cruz is a gross understatement. I will agree with that again. There were so many signs that could have prevented him from getting a gun, yet nothing happened. And that's what a lot of people are pissed off about right now, especially me. 17 lives could have been saved if people would get their feelings out of this and charge a kid for one of the 39 times police were called on him. I think everyone in the school had it in the back of their mind that if anyone was supposed to do it, it was most likely going to be him, a former classmate told the Post. Do it, meaning carry out the kind of homicidal rampage we saw Wednesday. Every school has that kid that everybody thinks would be the one to shoot up the school. That quote doesn't really mean much to me. But it shows that, yeah, this guy was obviously insane, and people thought he was insane. A math teacher at the school told the Miami Herald that Cruz had threatened students before being expelled, and that he wasn't allowed on campus with a backpack on him. I mean, I would have expelled him right away if I was the principal after he was threatening students. He should have been charged as an adult. You should not be able to threaten students with weapons on you on a school campus and get away with it. You can't even do that in public. Why should you be able to do it on a school ground? It was obvious that a tragedy might be coming, yet as a society we refused to take the steps that could have prevented it. As a society, we could not have done anything. You, me watching this, the author of this article, the media, none of us could have done anything to prevent this. The only people who could have prevented it were the FBI, who had the right to do so. At least I think that if you're posting YouTube comments saying that you're going to shoot up schools multiple times, and your social media is filled with things like that, that maybe you shouldn't be allowed to get a gun. Like, there's an extent that you have free speech in this country, and that is until you present a clear and imminent threat or danger or something like that. And I do think that saying that you're going to shoot up a school multiple times on social media platforms is a a clear and imminent threat. So the FBI could have done something about it. The local law enforcement could have done something about it. They visited his house 39 times about his incidents he had around the neighborhood. He was expelled from school for making threats. He should have been locked up, or at the very least charged with something to prevent him from getting a gun. They could have prevented it. Now, some people are saying that the administrators at the school could have prevented it. I don't think so. They expelled him and everything they could, and when he shot up the school, they were heroes and tried to save the students. I don't think that the administrators could have done anything. They did their jobs as well as they could have. And well, maybe he should have been expelled earlier, but other than that, I think they did their job just fine. It was the FBI, in part, but mainly the local law enforcement that I have my problems with. So as a society, we couldn't have done anything. We really couldn't have. Or at least I don't think we could have. So I'm interested to hear what this guy says the steps are that we should have taken as a society to prevent this. And I think the only steps we could have taken was to improve the mental health care system we have in this country, and it might have given us a chance to thwart his plans, or at least maybe convince them not to, but that's just a theory. But I do believe that's about the only step we could have taken, and I really doubt the author is going to suggest that with the title he has saying that mental health wasn't the issue, which I completely disagree with. I do believe that mental health had a big part in this shooting, and I think you're delusional to think not. How many alienated and disturbed young men are out there rattling around peaceful suburbs such as Parkland? I don't know why he only said young men. Mental health is an issue that both sexes deal with. But I guess he just said young men out of comparison of the little bitch that shot up the school. Many thousands, surely. Some will get the help they need, some won't. And that's true. We do need to take steps to enhance the mental health care in this country, because many people with mental health issues really aren't getting their help that they need. Most will never act on their violent urges, some will. And yes, we can all agree on that. It is impossible to imagine a mental health system with the scope, authority, and resources necessary to prevent every Parkland or Newton or Columbine. And that I agree with as well. But I think what we're all trying to look at is how to at least lessen the damage. There's no way to prevent everything. There's no way. This world's not perfect. It's not a utopia we live in. There's absolutely no way you're going to be able to prevent every school shooting. There's just not. And I wish there was, but there's not. And the steps we're looking for right now are how to at least stop some of the damage. And I do think a mental health system with a larger scope would probably help stop some of the damage. In Cruz's case, in fact, the existing system worked. He got professional help. Well, I don't agree with that. I think the existing system obviously failed. He shot up a school. I don't think that the system worked at all. I'm sorry. Now, could have anything been done to the system to make it work in this case? I doubt it, but it obviously didn't work. School administrators knew he could pose a threat. According to news reports, a tipster even tried to alert the FBI that Cruz wanted to be a professional school shooter. And I brought that up earlier. There's an extent that you have free speech, and that's kind of crossing the limits. And yes, I understand that sometimes it's hard to charge someone off a YouTube comment. But he did this multiple times and even had Instagram pages and Facebook pages linked with this type of behavior. And at that point, you need to at least do something. And I'm under the opinion that if you're putting things out there like, I want to be a professional school shooter, or I'm going to shoot up a school out there on social media and stuff, you should at least not be able to get a gun legally, right? And that's where I feel like the FBI failed us. They should be more focused on situations like this rather than finding Russian bots on Twitter and stuff. Yet in February 2017, Cruz was able to legally purchase an AR-15 style assault rifle from a local gun shop. With no criminal record or anything else in his past that would raise an official red flag, he sailed through a background check. That right there is a sign that the author has no idea what he's talking about. An AR-15 is not an assault rifle. It's a semi-automatic, not an assault. And the problem right there is not with the law, it was with the law enforcers. There should have been many, many cases in his past that would indicate that he should not have been able to obtain a gun. But yet he was not charged with anything, so of course he sailed through it. More laws would not have prevented that. And the only way at that point to prevent him from getting a gun is to ban people from getting guns. And doing that is against everything our Constitution stands for. And plus, you would probably never be able to do that without a revolution. and you'd probably lose that revolution as well. So just give up on trying to take all the guns away from the American public. And at that point, I really don't think that there was any way to prevent him from getting a gun other than the law enforcers actually doing their job. Alright, now this is where the article starts to get more interesting. Apologists for the National Rifle Association will cynically use this circumstance to argue against a common sense measure that 4 out of 5 Americans support: universal background checks for gun purchases. That wouldn't have stopped the Parkland massacre, they will claim, diverting attention away from the fact that universal checks could have prevented some mass shootings in the past and would surely prevent some in the future. So for those of you who don't really understand the universal background check thing, only 9 states require universal background checks for guns. And what that means is, if you are selling a gun from your personal collection, and it's only like 1 or 2, you do not need to go through a background check for that person. However, if you are repeatedly selling guns, like if you're a gun shop owner, or you're at a gun show, or you have a lot of guns in your collection that you are selling repeatedly, you need to own a license. And so the only thing that universal background checks do is put a background check if you're selling 1 or 2 guns, like maybe to a family member or a friend or something like that. But like I said, if you're in the business of selling guns, you need to have a license and you need to do background checks. It is required by law that you have a license and you do background checks if you sell guns repetitively for cash gain. That wouldn't have stopped the Parkland massacre, they will claim. You wouldn't have. He bought it from a store. He did not buy it from a family member or something like that. He went through a background check. A universal background check wouldn't have changed anything. You would still have gone through the background check. But most mass shootings were with guns that were purchased through dealers, which they had to go through a background check with, or they were purchased illegally through strawman purchases, diverting attention away from the fact that universal checks could have prevented some mass shootings in the past and would surely prevent some in the future. And so maybe it might have prevented some in the past, maybe it might prevent some in the future, but one thing's for sure is that a universal background check would do little to nothing, maybe 1 or 2 deaths a year. So you may be asking, well, why don't we just pass those background checks anyways? If it can prevent at least some killings, that would be good, right? Well, the problem is that people believe there are better ways to prevent shootings. The universal background check would cost tons of money to enforce, and you could instead take that money and put it into something that is a bigger issue that we have to deal with, is people's names not being in the background check system that should be. For example, the guy who shot up the school. The main problem with the background checks is not that they're not universal, it's that the names simply aren't in the background check system that should be. There is a major lack of names that should be in those check systems. It's just there's problems with people putting the names in the system. And so I think you should put more focus over there on getting people's names in the system, and rather than spending money on creating a universal background check system and enforcing it, which would be almost impossible to do, take all that money and make sure that everybody's names gets in the system. That's something I completely support. Yes, universal background check systems would probably be at least a little better, but it really wouldn't do much. The money would just better be spent elsewhere to rather enforce the background checks that are already in place, which account for over 99% of the sales that happen. And so I have to disagree. I really don't think that a universal background check system would surely prevent some in the future. And it maybe could have prevented some in the past. There's no way to say that either. But what would have prevented some in the past and the future is if you took that money and you put it in getting names in the system. That definitely would have prevented a lot of mass shootings. And that's what we need to focus on, is getting people's names in the system so that they can't pass those background checks. That right there would thwart many killings, a lot more than a universal background check system would. At the heart of the matter, though, lies the gun. There are disturbed individuals like crews in countries around the world, but only the United States suffers mass shootings so regularly that they have almost become routine. Why? Because you can't shoot up a school or a nightclub or a country music concert the way it was done in Parkland, Orlando, and Las Vegas if you don't have access to weapons of war that were designed for the battlefield. Okay, I totally disagree with this. The AR-15 is not a weapon of war. A weapon of war would more be like an M16. An AR-15 stands no chance against an M16. And I do agree that maybe M16s are a little too much and should be banned. But AR-15s? The AR-15 is the most popular gun in the world. Why do you think that is? It's because people like it. It's reliable. There are millions of AR-15s in the US. Yet how many crimes do you see committed with an AR-15? People don't like AR-15s because they are big and bulky and look a little scary. The civilian AR-15s are not that scary. They aren't. They're semi-automatic. Think about it this way, there are about 2.5 million instances of gun use in America every year. Only 30,000 of those are used for assaults, and 2/3 of those 30,000 are suicides. Only 10,000 are used for actual crimes. Meanwhile, the rest of the 2.5 million times are used for self-defense. And the idea that if you don't have access to quote-unquote weapons of war, like the AR-15, that you can't shoot up a school, is absolutely ridiculous. Do these people not know that the Columbine shooters used mostly shotguns for their kills? Or that the Virginia Tech shooters used handguns for their kills? So the idea that you can't shoot up a school or a nightclub or something without a quote-unquote weapon of war is absolutely insane. The Supreme Court has made clear that the Second Amendment, while guaranteeing the right to keep and bear arms, is not absolute. The Bill of Rights was written in the era of muskets and dueling pistols. We don't allow private citizens to own surface-to-air missiles capable of downing an airline. So why do we let them own assault rifles designed not to shoot targets or game, but to kill human beings in large numbers? Okay, this argument is absolutely retarded. The Bill of Rights was also written in an era where they did have actual assault weapons. Take example for the puckle gun, I think it was called. It was like an ancient, you can call it an ancient, it was like a Gatling gun, way back in the day. Way back in the 1700s. And also believe that Thomas Jefferson, I think he equipped Lewis and Clark with these guns called the Girardoni guns or something like that. You can look it up. And these were automatic rifles. The Bill of Rights was written to include advanced technology. You have to be absolutely retarded to think that our founding fathers were so retarded as to think that gun advancements wouldn't be made to assault weapons when they already had them. You'd have to think our founding fathers were that stupid. Now, you could also argue that they didn't envision something like a nuclear bomb being invented, and I think we can all agree that we don't want private citizens owning nuclear bombs. But still, the Second Amendment was written when they knew fully well that advanced in weaponry would be made, especially when they already had assault rifles. They may not have been as powerful as today, that's pretty obvious. But they knew that it was going to be advanced, and they knew it was going to be powerful. So the idea that they only wanted people to have muskets and dueling pistols to defend themselves with is absolutely insane. And also, we don't let citizens own assault rifles designed to kill human beings in large numbers. Unless you have a very special permit and license can you own an assault rifle. And like I said, those are so rare you might as well give up on even obtaining one. And civilian guns like the AR-15 was not designed to kill human beings in large numbers. It was designed for hunting and self-defense. But any gun can be used to kill in large numbers. Take example for a shotgun used in the Columbine shooting. The Columbine shooting was a very deadly school shooting. And you know how many kills they got with that shotgun? They killed human beings in large numbers. Does that mean we should ban shotguns now? Or the Virginia Tech, they killed large numbers of human beings with handguns. Does that mean we should ban handguns now? Or should we just ban AR-15s because they're big and scary? He goes on to say, "This is madness. Look at those grieving parents in Parkland. Know that because of the NRA, others surely will soon join the ranks." So he's basically blaming the NRA on the school shooting. Yes, it's the NRA's fault that the guy shot up the school. It wasn't his mental health issues at all. It wasn't the fact that the law enforcement didn't put his name on the background check. No, it was the NRA. The NRA paid him to go shoot up that school. That's what happened. You know what's madness is the end of this article. That's madness. To think that it was the gun's fault and not his mentally insane head's fault. And I know the Florida shooting was absolutely devastating, and it's terrible, and I hate things when they happen. But to go out and blame people like the NRA, or suggest we ban guns, or suggest we enforce stricter gun laws when the laws that are in place would have prevented it if they were properly enforced, saying stuff like that is absolutely ridiculous. You need to find better steps to help prevent mass shootings like this from happening. Like we've gone over, banning semi-automatic weapons won't prevent mass shootings. We saw that with many school shootings. Banning guns overall isn't going to happen, and it probably will still result in more mass shootings. A universal background check will do little to nothing, and it would cost so much more money that could better be spent elsewhere, as for example getting people's names in the background check system in the first place. I'm fully open to ideas of how to prevent this. In fact, I want people to come up with ideas of how to prevent this. But arguments like these have been disproven over and over again. Like, they've been disproven so much that someone like me can come out here and disprove it. Stop going over the same arguments that we've already debunked and go find new ones, please. And stop saying we should ban assault rifles when they pretty much already are banned. Stop trying to come up with laws that are already invented. But I guess that's asking a bit much for writers like this who are just trying to get attention. Either they're absolutely retarded and put assault rifles in there because they didn't know that the AR-15 wasn't an assault rifle, which I don't want to believe, or they put it in there knowing full and well that the AR-15 is an assault rifle, yet they put it in there to abuse the fact that some people are ignorant to it to gain people's attention, which is absolutely disgusting. They're lying to their audience. And that's what this guy's doing. He's absolutely lying to the audience. So that's the end of the article. This article contains pretty much every classic argument someone trying to push gun laws would make. And as you can see, they all fall short. Like, I'm open to suggestions and arguments, but they keep using the same old arguments that get debunked over and over again. And the problem is that people don't listen to the debunked part. They only listen to the same argument and don't look for themselves or think for themselves. They don't do their own research, they just believe what they're told. And that's something I want this channel and his videos to help stop, is to get people to realize that they can think for themselves. You can have your own opinions, you don't have to listen to everything the media tells you. And I'm saying this for both sides of the political spectrum. But regardless of all this, my heart is with those victims who suffered in the Florida shooting. I do hope that those injured and those families with their loss recover from this shooting. And I hope the little motherfucker who shot up the school go and burns in hell for eternity. Like, whether you believe in hell or you don't believe in it, I think we can both agree that we both hope hell is real, just so people like him can go just burn in it for eternity. And I also want to end with Aaron Feis. If you guys haven't heard, he's a hero in the shooting. He was a football coach who at the time of the shooting threw his body in the way of other students to protect them from bullets so they could run to safety. It's people like these we should be talking about when a shooting occurs, not the shooter himself. The shooter should not be glorified and given all the attention on media. It should be people like this who get the attention. And you see a trend towards that growing, and I hope the trend continues to grow. And I hope heroes like him get remembered when we think of shootings like this, rather than the little bitches that shoot up the schools. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Normally I would say like if you liked it, or leave a comment, tell me about your opinions, or subscribe for more videos, but I'm not going to ask that today. You can unsubscribe if you want. You can dislike if you want. I don't think it's appropriate for me to ask you to help my channel grow out of news like this. What I ask is that you remember men like this after these shootings, heroes like this. That's all I got to say for now. I will see you guys next time.